People who grew up poor, what did you used to think was normal? I was totally shocked when I learned that some people go out to eat more than once a year. Also when I learned there are people who don't skip meals. I was shocked to find out people eat out on a regular day, like not anyone's birthday or any other celebration. I remember being so happy when my mom rewarded me with fast food fried chicken meal for school achievements in elementary school. When I was an undergraduate, my sister told me my mom would skimp on their meals just to buy me those. Going on vacation to the local hotel in our hometown, we got to play in the pool and order delivery pizza, a rare treat, and we always had a blast. As a kid I didn't know there were multiple settings on a water heater. I assumed everybody had to wait an hour or so after somebody uses the shower to get some hot water going. I am embarrassed to admit that I recently found out about continuous flow of hot water 5 years ago. I was 25. I spent the weekend at my then future in-law's house. The conversation went something like this. Fiance, I'm going to shower before dinner. Me. But your brother just got out 5 minutes ago. Fiance explains how they never run out of hot water. My mind was blown. Cleaning your plate. I honestly still do. If I pay for food I'm gonna eat it all, and if not, I will save it. So many people I've eaten with will leave food and it's just disposed of. Hell, my stepdad didn't realize that for 14 years. Leftovers? Trash em. Up. Nah. My mother single-handedly raised 2 boys. We don't waste. Speaking as someone who grew up with plenty of money, this isn't solely restricted to poor people. I mean, it's perfectly good food. Why waste it? And leftovers are great. You can just pop them into the microwave and near instantly get good food. What more could you want? Never traveling out of the country or state. Kids always talked about where they traveled, like during breaks, summer vacation for example. I think it was a grade 6 project in September and we had to draw maps to geographic locations where we went that summer. My map was just of the town and going to the grocery store and church and stuff. Hopefully it made my teacher think that project for the future. Skipping lunch dinner periodically so one of us could have all 3 meals. Like Tuesdays, Thursday, Sunday I didn't eat dinner but my mom little brother did. And every other day my mom didn't eat lunch or dinner so me and my brother could. I only started skipping meals for my mom because she was getting physically sick from not eating. My mom having to buy a new 3,000 car every couple of years because our previous one broke down and we don't have enough to repair it. Coming home to see the water electricity were off. Having to buy jugs of water at the dollar store so we could flush the toilet. Leaving a giant hole in the entryway where water had leaked through because we just couldn't afford to repair it. Not having heat AC. Having to bath with water from jugs, waking up and realizing our washing machine had broken down again so I'd rub my dirty clothes with washing detergent to try and mask the stale scent clothing gets when it hasn't been washed to this day. People making comments about something smelling weird, even if not directed at me, makes me have major anxiety attacks. Only having one pair of super cheap shoes that we'd have to wear until they fell apart. The amount of times I tripped over the soles of my own shoes in my HS hallways was ridiculous. For my school's Spirit Week, they had a thrift shop day, where most everyone dressed in old ratty clothes, or the weirdest stuff they could find in a thrift shop. Needless to say, as someone whose clothes were 80% second-hand, it was an eye-opener. Having sleep for dinner. I never saw my parents because they worked so much. When I was in elementary school, we lived in an apartment above the bar they owned. My time with them was spent working in the kitchen, doing homework at the bar, and then walking upstairs to put myself to bed. We eventually moved and I was always alone. From Wednesday morning through Saturday, I would wake and walk to school, come home, make dinner, do homework, and go to bed with no contact from an adult. This continued throughout secondary school. From 6th through 12th grade, I was so incredibly lonely, but it was normal for me. I can't imagine how my world would have been different if they didn't need to work so much to scrape by. Everyone in the house going into the kitchen to see what groceries were brought home and being so excited as if it was Christmas. Also, now that my family is doing a lot better than when I was growing up, we find ourselves hoarding food, stocking up on canned goods, buying things in bulk on sale, as if we are waiting for those rainy days to hit again. Only having lunch at school, like that being the only meal of the day. I learned when I was like 10. Then I started saving my food and bringing it home so my brother and sister could eat. I brought this up to my coworker the other day and it kind of blew her mind. It wasn't something she ever thought about. I had said something about the current school closing sucking for kids who only eat at school. So many people don't realize this is still to this day a thing. I thought one pair of shoes was normal till the 10th grade. My spouse grew up poor and this was an issue for him. One pair of shoes and they were cheap Payless or knockoffs. They didn't last and that was too bad. No other shoes to wear. He is big on his kids having name brand shoes and more than one pair. We don't go wild and spend exorbitant amounts on shoes, but it's something that my spouse insists on spending some money on. It's just something he has bad memories about. 7 to 14 years old. Going to school then going to work. After school delivering newspapers and also collecting their payments. Never a day off. One time we had so much snow that the post office closed. Yet my little A had to deliver. Latchkey kid at 10 years old because parents worked. Being a girl, I was also responsible for cooking dinner for my father and older brothers and other household chores. I was also expected to excel at school. I did. My schedule was so strict. One thing I hated the most were science fairs. All the rich kids had so much help and confidence. Then there was me with a piece of cardboard, loads of stress and anxiety. I knew it wasn't normal, but we didn't have heat or air conditioning in my house. We used a wood stove in the oven to heat the first floor and the second floor was usually freezing. When the weather turned hot, we were just hot. Yes, you'd take a glass of water up with you at night in cold months and it would have ice on top by morning. Of course, being poor, the beds were shared which helped you sleep warmer. We had box fan upstairs that blew the hot air out one window at night with windows open downstairs to draw in cooler air overnight. Windows were braced above so that they couldn't be opened further than a few inches and beer cans with a few coins inside on top of each to wake the house if someone tried to knock it loose. Poor man's burglar alarm. Then at first light, all the windows were shut up tight and heavy drapes closed to block out the heat of the day. We lived in dim light most of the summers, which is very odd when you think of it. I'm female, if it matters. My family's budget fluctuated a lot. In our poorer years, I thought it was normal to wear my brother's hand-me-downs and make them last as long as possible. Like, until my pants were so short that 3 or so inches of my ankles were showing. Got to make those clothes last 10 years at least. Also, when my dad started making enough money that he could splurge and buy steak, I thought steak was nasty. Turns out, my dad could only afford the cheapest, gnarliest cut of steak possible. Basically, I would chew and chew only to have it turn to meat gum in my mouth. It was totally inedible. So I wondered why all the wealthier families liked steak so much. Getting gifts from the Salvation Army, layaway for school clothes, fares for free school supplies, mom and dad working 2 jobs, sharing everything. Shopping at thrift shops. It wasn't until I got to high school that no one else shopped there. Or the fact that a lot of our stuff came second-hand markets and things like that. It was like this for a long time. Only poor people shopped at thrift stores. Now it's in fashion. So tons of wealthy people go there looking to score on something neat. Growing up, whenever winter came we used to pull all of the blankets out of the closet and bundle up at night. We didn't have working heat and most nights it would go way below freezing. I always looked forward to it though and would love getting gathered up in a million blankets and sit next to the space heater. I also shared a small room with both my sisters and slept on one twin bed with them. My brothers did the same in the room across from us. I grew up thinking food was a scarcity. Whenever we went anywhere my mom would tell me and my sisters to not accept food from people. She didn't want our hunger to be someone else's burden. Now that I'm in college and go places, like my boyfriend's family's house, it's seen as rude to refuse food. My automatic response is to politely refuse even if I hadn't eaten all day. Even after years, and now being able to mostly get by myself, it still sometimes feels like being hungry is a normal state. I sometimes still forget to eat. My stomach will tell me I'm hungry, but because it was so ingrained in me that hunger is normal, I typically won't realize I'm hungry until I get a headache. Coming home from school to find that our water or electricity was turned off and my dad rushing home to turn it on himself, which is illegal. I still think the concept of family road trips is super weird. Like it's only something I know from movies. I didn't leave my province until I was 22 with my friend. When I went to rich kids' houses, I was in awe of the kitchen pantry. You mean, you can walk into it? How many different cereals do you have? Using laundry detergent, dish soap, bar soap or whatever kind of soap you scrape together to wash your hair, picking fruit from the trees and bushes next to the sidewalk and canning it, bringing home blown mushrooms from the Safeway dumpster and drying them under the wood stove to use in soups, mom getting your Christmas gifts secondhand from the flea market, getting your school clothes secondhand from the flea market, powdered milk, lots of pots of soup, all year round, saving wrapping paper and bells from birthday parties we went to so that we'd have something to wrap our gifts in, mom sleeping in the living room so me and my brother could have our own rooms, bringing peanut butter on bread and sliced carrots or celery to school for lunch, every day, collecting aluminum cans from people's recycling bins to cash and to have the $2 to go to the school dance. Not me, but my dad grew up dirt poor in India. We are upper class in the US now. He would tell me how he would get shoes, not new shoes, just shoes. So India is primarily a Hindu nation and there are temples everywhere. People leave their shoes and sandals in front of the temple before entering in order to not track dirt into the temple. So my dad would go to a temple to pray. He would ask God for a pair of shoes and just walk out with someone else's shoes that fit. Rinse and repeat.